Hello. Hello,
Ah,
everybody. Hi.
good
Uh,
afternoon.
Welcome to a Gotham Sound TV video where we are unboxing the Nexus from Sound Devices. And I dislike unboxing videos. And so I asked Paul Isaacs if he could join us for this unboxing video so that we can make it
Well,
a little bit more informative than
I,
usual.
I thought you said this was a boxing video. I thought
Did
we were
you
going to have a bit of a
gloves?
punch up.
Did you
Yeah, I
bring your
mean,
gloves?
no, I like to go bare fist myself, but
I think it would have gotten the YouTube streams up, viewership up, if we had said it was a boxing video. Yes, I did bring a box cutter, so we'll start there.
oh, that's unfair. If I've only got boxing gloves and you've got a Stanley knife, that's not fair.
Yes, yes. I brought a box cutter to a boxing fight. So yeah. How are you, Paul?
I'm very well. And how are you?
I'm okay. My one of my cats is in the cat hospital.
Oh no.
Yeah, so it's second time in 3 months.
Yes,
Um,
he or she,
it's Bernard.
Bernard.
Um,
How old is
yeah,
Bernard?
about 6 years, 7 years old.
Well, that's young.
I know, I know. His sister Dawn Patrol is very sad, so I'm a little bit distracted. I have the phone here, keeping an eye out on what the vet is talking about.
Okay,
But
so
yeah.
if you get that emergency call, I'll take over. Don't worry. I mean, cats a priority,
Well,
absolutely
yeah,
priority.
it's really amazing how they kind of do that. Yeah,
Yeah, they have that way about them.
that's right. What's going on? Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
Yeah, we did very quiet and peaceful. Just had my two sons over, my wife, and yeah, we just hung out together. We didn't do turkey because we do
Mm-hmm.
turkey at Christmas back in England,
Mm.
and so we had steak, which was nice. I always love my steak, so we had a very nice time. How about you?
Nice. Yeah, very good. Italian, strangely, for me. But yeah, it was great. It was in Minneapolis. I had a great time with my boys, and yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's where my son lives, in Minneapolis. So
It's a beautiful city. Twin cities. They're both beautiful.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, all right. I think we should get into it. Mainly because people are really just. This is our demo A20, and it leaves here and goes out on demo. So let's get it out into the world. So first of all, I'm just going to switch over to the overhead, and here it is, the A20 Nexus, and I'm going to start to unbox it. Um, Paul, how would you describe this? What is this?
Well, it's a cardboard box. I mean, yeah, it does have a sleeve on the outside.
Yeah,
Ah,
let's just get rid of
he's
that.
get rid of the sleeve. You want to know what's inside, or should we leave it as a surprise? As a surprise?
Tell me about what is inside. How would you
Okay,
characterize this?
the A20 Nexus is a 8 to 16 channel digital wireless true diversity receiver, essentially, and a very small one. It's a 1U half rack size unit.
Now, wait a second. What are these things?
So those things are included with the Nexus. They are wideband omni bow tie antennas. So you get two of those free with every Nexus. Yep, they're wideband, so they run from 470 to 1525 megahertz, which is the operating tuning range of the A20 Nexus receiver. You know, it's the widest tuning range of any receiver on the market by a long way. So
Can I,
that was
can I just smile for a second? And I want to acknowledge Jared, who really is our hero when it comes to these live streamings. I believe he said, "Guys, why don't you, just kind of prep the packaging a little bit?" And I absolutely am starting to agree with him. I, of course, said no. Why would we want to prep any packaging? But This is a lot of packaging. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like you with unboxing. I'm a bit ham-fisted, and I never do it the right way. I always wreck the packaging, which is no
Hey,
good.
speaking of not wrecking the packaging, this is the proper way to not wreck this package, right? Where you don't
Yeah,
tear
that's it.
into the cellophane. Okay.
Lift up the ears,
Yeah.
and there you go. Oh, by the way, going back to those antennas that we've
Yes.
included, those bow tie antennas, they are called the A20 Monarch. And any idea why we might have called them the Monarch?
Because they look like a bird.
A bird or a
Butterfly?
butterfly?
Yes.
Yeah, like a butterfly is one reason, but also you do know that I'm a royalist, and it's sort of like in memorial of the Queen who just passed away.
Right. Okay.
No, that's not true.
Okay. Good.
Actually,
Yeah.
it's about Prince Charles, King Charles now, and those are not wings on that thing. They are actually in reference to his ears.
I thought it was going to be your next prime minister, actually. But I guess you've settled. You guys have settled on one.
So you get two of those 470 to 1525 bandwidth Omni bow tie antennas, and they can obviously perfect for the Nexus, but can be used with really any receiver you like. So take a look. Very lightweight, quite small. You know, pretty good for a bag.
I'm just going to switch over so that people see the word vertical. Oops, there we go. I'll get up close, vertical. So they're supposed to go like that. Yeah?
That's correct. That's correct. You got it.
Good.
You know your vertical from your horizontal?
Most days, yes. Great. Well, yeah. So really wideband, 470 to 1525.
Exactly. So they're ideal for Nexus, but as I said, they can be used with any receiver system. So
I'm just going to make some more noise while I look and see what's in this box. This little accessory box here. This is the dangerous part.
Watch those fingers.
Yeah. If I were good, I'd have a whole gag planned with fake blood and everything. But yeah, all right. Let's see. Okay. Wow, there's a lot of stuff in here, Paul.
Well, it's just like Christmas. We're coming up to Christmas. Yeah. So this is actually, you may have noticed, this is all green packaging. It's we're particularly keen on not doing any more harm to the environment that the human race is tending to do at the minute. So yeah, we make all our packaging as green as possible. And that's actually it's not just us, it's all the companies in the Audiotonics group. So everything's recyclable. So what's in there?
I am curious.
Yes, that's articulating a clamp, and there should be an articulating arm, which allows you to sort of mount your antennas that we provided on a stand. Yeah, so helps you straight out the box, and you could use those for mounting onto your bag or cart or whatever.
Yeah,
those are nice clamps. Those are.
And so the idea is that these go just like that.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Very nice.
BNC in the other bag.
Okay, so those are duplicates, and and then in this packaging, we have some rubber duckies, not quite rubber duckies, but some.
So they look like the 2.4 gigahertz antennas that we include, SMA. So that's for the backlink control, the remote control of your transmitters from the receiver. And we'll talk more about that a bit later if you like.
Yeah, I definitely do. I definitely would like to. Let's finish opening up all the packaging. So
Sure.
I see here a USB cord, USB-C, and a 50 ohm BNC.
Yep, for your antennas again. So the USB cable, there is a USB-A to USB-C, and that's used for pairing your transmitters to the Nexus. We can talk more about that as well soon.
And what is this? This is interesting.
So if you are a bag user and you want to mount the Nexus in your bag, then those are what we call the 2.4 gigahertz antenna brackets, and they allow you to bring out these two antennas just there to the front of the unit, because otherwise the SMA connectors, the 2.4 gigahertz on the rear of the unit, which is obviously not ideal for bag work. So you can mount these brackets on the front side, both sides of the Nexus, and it brings the antennas forward there. And the nice thing about those brackets is that they are adjustable. You can set the depth of how far they come out or go in, and you can even adjust their angle. So read more about it in the user guide.
Yes. Oh, I have to break the seal now. Okay.
Once you've done that, you can't return it. Only kidding.
All right. Well, let's see. I may have to, seriously break it.
Okay, don't scratch the top there.
Yeah, I saw that. Always cut away from you. That's what I've learned. Okay.
There it is.
Right. So those are the 2.4 gig connections that you were talking about.
Yeah. Okay. So Peter, first impressions. This is the first time you've had one of these in your hand. You tell me what it feels like.
It feels solid and it feels dense. I would say it's roughly 1.5 pounds, maybe
Pretty
a bit
good.
more. Yeah. And it definitely it does feel solid. Absolutely.
Solid but small. So can you imagine, can you believe that in there you've got up to 16 channels of true diversity digital wireless with a
Okay, well let's start to get into it then. I mean, that's the unboxing. If all anybody wanted to see was the unboxing, that's it, and that's what it comes with. But I don't think that's our viewers.
Should we go around the panels? Do you want to do that as a starting
guess so,
point?
yeah. And do you have one where you are?
Yeah, you don't want to see me anymore. Let me switch my camera here. I'm just, in theory, this should switch to that, right? Are you seeing the Nexus here?
Yeah.
Understand? Okay, good. All right. So, well, let's start with the back panel. No, let's not. Let's start with the front panel. And we'll go into a bit more of the menus in a minute, just to give you an overview of the videos. But
let me just interrupt you for a second, and I apologize. Sure. You said it's up to 16 channels
of true diversity digital wireless. Yeah.
And so, what does that mean? Up to 16 channels out of the box? Is it 16 channels?
Okay, no. So, out of the box, it's an 8-channel base system, right? And you can buy optional +4 plugins, which add 4 channels at a time, right? So you can add a single +4 to take you up to 12 channels if you feel like you're never going to need 16 channels, or you could buy 2 of those +4 plugins to open it up to to 16 channels. So yeah, out of the box, it's only 8 channels. He says only. I mean, that's still a really nice number in such a small space like this. The plugins, I should say, will be available first thing in the new year. So yeah.
Got it. Okay. Amazing. So that's I mean, that's really incredible. And I can't think of another device quite like that in our market where you can double the capacity with a flick of a switch, essentially.
Yeah. And we wanted to do it this way. We wanted to not enforce 16 channels on everyone. So that's why there's an option to buy only 8 channel, because some people are never going to go beyond that, depending on their work. So this is why the channel availability is an optional thing. You choose for your needs. And if initially you only need eight channel, and then further down the line, your production needs need more. And as we all know, productions seem to continually want more and more wireless. I don't think 16 channel is going to become an uncommon thing. It's already fairly common now in
Indeed. Yeah,
in many
absolutely.
applications. So,
All right.
all right, where to next, Peter?
So,
You guide me.
all right. Yeah. No, I want to know more about what I see on the display first of all. So
Okay.
there's four. I see four little individual screens.
Yeah, so actually, what you're going to see out of the box is you're going to see this screen. It's like the default 8 channel
Mm-hmm.
view. So basically, there are 4 screens which act really as one, and they are all touch screens, very similar to the Mix-Pre OLED screens. If you're familiar with those, I think you probably are.
Mm-hmm.
And they are protected by Gorilla Glass, so very solid and robust. There is a third-party screen protector out there. We can provide that information. I think it might be a watch protector, but don't quote me on that.
Right.
Um,
Right.
So, yep, it's the 4 OLEDs, all touch screen. This particular default view is you're seeing the 8 channels, but you can view all sorts of different combinations. So I can maybe touch 2 screens there. Now I'm looking at 4 channels. I can touch a screen and just look at a whole 1 channel across all 4 screens. And then I can sort of go back to my 8 channel view. So there's lots of different ways you can view your channel layouts. There is this option here by touching this little button here called the RTSA, because there is a built-in real-time spectrum analyzer, which is a really powerful tool to help it with frequency coordination. It's all
How is
built in.
that different than just taking a receiver and scanning? What makes a real-time
Right.
spectrum analyzer special?
So with a scan, you're typically just doing like a snapshot of the RF environment at a particular moment in time. And you're displaying it there and then, which is great. You can get a good feel for what's going on, but it's not giving you real-time feedback. And as we all know, RF environments are continually changing. And so what we're seeing here, and in fact, I can blow it up to full screen. You're looking at across those first 3 screens, the width of the currently selected tuning band. You can it's giving you a real-time view of all your RF peaks and noise floor in the environment, and you can see your scale here in dBm, that purple scale, and you can see how the wanted signals that you want are stand out against that RF noise, or are getting too close to the RF noise floor, and that can
So Paul,
help you decide.
can I ask
Go
a
on.
question
Yeah.
about this? I see three carriers, I think now, plus
Yeah.
the DTV station. Are you in control of any of those 3 carriers? Like, can you turn one of
Yeah.
them off just so we can get a sense of how fast it responds?
Sure. So I can, probably easier to do from the web app, but I'll do this now directly from the screen. So I'm going to just touch that number. You notice like those numbers beneath the, I'll just go back, you'll see it again. So you notice there's the numbers here, so you can see which receive channel those transmitter signals are coming in on, right? So I can just touch a number directly from here, and it'll take you directly to the setup screen for that receiver transmitter pair.
Got it.
Right. And actually, you can see here on the full screen more a zoomed in RTSA of just the peak. So you can check the shape of that peak to see that it's not in any way not correct, or it's being interfered with. But something that you can see how clean the signal is there. You know, this really tight edge to the signal. That's really part of a nice aspect of the A20 signal RF modulation scheme. Okay, so once we're in here, if I want to simply move that or just turn off that signal, I can touch the off button here. Whoops, just come back in again. Just touch off, and you can see immediately it goes away, right? You saw that on the
Now,
last screen.
is that a transmitter that you have in your hand?
It's just sitting a couple of meters away from me to the
Ah,
side here.
all right. Because I think, for me, what's exciting about the real time spectrum analyzer is um, the key difference is intermittent transmissions will get seen in this screen. So somebody keys up a walkie briefly. If you're using a traditional receiver that just can scan one frequency at a time, it might be on a different part of the spectrum when the walkie keys up, and you might miss it entirely. But
Exactly.
with something like this, like I'm imagining if you were to, if I don't want you to get up and go get the transmitter if it's far, but if you were to turn it off, we would see it instantaneously disappear from the screen. Is that right?
Yep, you would.
Yeah.
Everything's real time. So I'm going to turn that channel back on, and you'll see the signal bounce straight back,
Mm-hmm.
and there it is here. So it's a very quick, it's only like a second or two. And the way this works is when we set a channel here on Nexus, it pushes that frequency change to the transmitter over what we call NextLink, which is our backlink remote control of the transmitters. And it runs on a proprietary 2.4 gigahertz frequency.
Mm-hmm.
It's people, I guess, are going to be a little bit concerned about that because we all know there's a lot of 2.4 gig around and with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. But our protocol is extremely robust, and the main design criteria for our backlink when we were looking at developing this was that the backlink has always, in all circumstances, it doesn't matter on how crowded or congested the RF environment, the backlink must always well exceed the forward wireless audio transmission link.
Now, let me ask you this question about the backlink. Is it the same backlink that's in the A20 receivers and the A10 receivers now?
No,
Okay.
you're talking about the A20RX and
Eight,
the
sorry.
A10.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, no, those don't have this technology. This requires totally different hardware. The control of the A20 minis from the is via Bluetooth,
Uh
has
huh.
been via Bluetooth, but the A10TX does not have this this NextLink technology built in. So it's only the A20 minis that can be controlled this way via the backlink.
Got it.
You know, the we ran some tests in a sporting venue, a crowded sporting venue a few weeks back, and we were getting range right across the venue, not just on the same level, but from one side to the other side down in the basement. And
Uh
like, so
huh.
there's many layers of concrete between the receivers and the transmitters, and the next link control was still working very, very well, even though the audio signal had dropped out. But think about this. This is a really nice thing because you can, if you get some say your transmitter is suddenly being interfered with on a particular frequency, you can then change the frequency from Nexus on the fly and then establish connection again. Or if it's deemed that maybe the RF power is too low because the talent's moving a little bit further away, you can then increase the RF power then, and bring that wireless audio forward link back.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I want to show you while we're here is that from this RTSA screen, it's very easy to, you don't actually have to leave this screen. So for instance, if channel 3 here, as you can see here, we wanted to move that frequency due to interference or what have you, I could then say, just tap on the screen. So you can see that blue cursor, right? I could fine tune it by moving it backwards and forwards with this knob here. And you can see the values at the top of the display here in blue, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that shows you the frequency the cursor is at and the current dBm level. It's obviously very low there, minus 90 or whatever it is. So then once I've moved it to there, it's simply a case of pressing this knob here, and then it'll say, well, which channel do you want to move it to? So I'm going to just move it to this channel, and now you can see it immediately come up.
Ah,
That's like
that's lovely.
within a
That's lovely.
second. So I can move back and forth these frequencies almost seamlessly. Of course, there's going to be a momentary audio drop, but it's it locks very quickly.
And do I worry about intermod interference, or is that calculating it for me, or because of the
Well,
digital modulation, I'm less concerned about that?
yeah, the latter with digital modulation, it's much less of a concern, but still, what you're seeing here, it's a very visual, obvious thing. You don't really specifically have to be an RF expert to understand that. I mean, like here, for instance, there's a little peak right there coming from somewhere. Can you see that little small spike?
Yes. Yep.
I'm not going to place my cursor directly over that and put my frequency, my transmitter on it. Why would I? When there's so much other space, free, clean space, so I can just tap to the side of it and then just put it there. It's much, much easier.
Amazing. Hey, I want to clear out some questions that have been building up
Okay.
that people are asking. So, Jacob has a few questions. One of them is, how much power does it use when it's running all 8 or 16 channels? In other words, does the power consumption change with the more channels you have going?
Yeah, it does a little bit. I mean, in idle mode, um, say with, I don't know, about 8 channels going, you're looking at about 11 watts,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then, if you're going to go up to 16 channels, you're probably looking at still less, so 13 watts, I'd say, something
Got it.
like that. So, it's definitely worth turning off receive channels if you're not using them. And it's an intelligently powered system that if you do turn off a receiver, it will, from this screen here,
Mm-hmm.
I'll just go to this screen. If I turn off here, it's not only going to turn off the receiver channel, but it's automatically going to turn off your transmitter as well via Nextlink.
Fascinating. I could imagine a world where maybe you don't want it to do that, but that's I love that kind of intelligence.
And and there is a way of doing that as well, which
That's
I won't
great.
get into right
Good,
now.
good.
But
Yeah, no, 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 that's good. All right. Now we really haven't even gotten into the idea that it can dock into a recorder, but Christian Dolan asks, how many channels are available when docked into an 833?
well, it's still a 16 channel device if you bought the 2+4 plugins. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The 833 as standard is an 8 ISO 4 mix recorder mixer, so total 12 tracks. So if you bought the +4 plugin for the 833, that takes it up to 12 ISOs. So a good combination there would be to get the +4 on the 833 and the +4 on your Nexus to give you a 12 channel receiver and ISO based system. That'd be a really nice combination
That's pretty
for the
sweet.
833. Yeah.
Jacob again was asking about the real-time spectrum analyzer. He wants to know more about the guts of it. Is it an SDR based something, or is it running on a FPGA board? He wants to know more about the real-time spectrum analyzer.
Well, actually, this is a dedicated real-time spectrum analyzer, so it's not using up any of the other receiver channels dedicated to audio. So this can run simultaneously alongside 16 channels. So you've got all your audio and this running at the same time, which makes it particularly useful, because often sometimes when you're doing a scan, having that sort of functionality, you have to disable audio. But in this particular mode, you don't have to do that. Without giving too much away, and I don't really want to get too much into the depth of the whole
Mm-hmm.
input stage, and we have a really nice article in the user guide if you want to find out more about the architecture of the RF input stage and how we do the filtering and how the FPGA plays into that. It is all there. It's good reading. But I will say that this is a true diversity system for all 16 channels, which means you have two independent paths, both passing through SAW filters, which are very, very tight filters. They're the sort of best on the market, and it enables you to have like quasi brick wall type of filtering, which is great for eliminating out of band interference, especially if you are running this in a bag. where you are running with IFB and camera hops. This
Absolutely.
Nexus does a phenomenal job of that, as does our dual A20-RX
Hmm.
receiver, which we bought out several months ago.
And that dovetails nicely into Luis's question, which is, can you auto assign 8 frequencies with a clean frequency plan, depending on clean spectrum while choosing a legal band? Let's say,
Right.
can you only go into 518 to 542 only?
So let's see. So let me just go over a
Yeah,
little bit of the workflow, the way this
good.
would
Because I think
work.
we'll get to
Because
that, and we'll get to Luis's next question as well.
right, because we speak about this spectra band, being super wide tuning range of like 470 to 1525 megahertz, all in the same box, and it's not just in the actual Nexus receiver here, but it's also in the A20 mini transmitters.
Hmm.
The first benefit of that is you don't have to have different models or SKUs depending on what frequency block you want to be using. So this is a worldwide solution. You can operate this hardware anywhere in the world and find a frequency that's going to work for you. So that's number one. Now, obviously, you have to take into consideration what's legally available in each country, whether it's restricted frequencies and whether you need licenses. And so wherever you operate, that's the onus is on the end user to make sure they're operating legally. But what from the actual hardware itself, it's capable of doing all of this. Okay. And the so we've got this huge range, but we divide that range up into what we call into smaller frequency windows,
Hmm.
which what we call tuning bands. And those tuning bands are typically about 24 megahertz wide. So yes, you select a tuning band, and then that's where your 16 channels must fit. And it's actually really easy to achieve that for a few reasons. Number one, you can place a 20 as long as the minimum spacing is 400 kilohertz. So 16 channels would occupy, if you put them contiguously, would occupy 6.4 megahertz. Okay, still well within that 24 megahertz window.
Got it.
And you've also got to remember that these tuning bands are really tightly filtered, more so than any other system out there. So you really are not getting any significant effect from frequencies outside that band. So if you're running with IFB or camera hops, as long as you're placing them, say, maybe 10 megahertz outside of that tuning band you've chosen, at that sort of level, you're going to be the out of band signal is being attenuated by a huge amount. It's going to be like about 40 dBs down. I'd love to be able to show you a little graph, little plot, which I don't have to hand right now, but it shows how our tuning band filters are almost like brick wall compared to any of the competition, where you typically see a gradual roll off, but with ours you're just seeing about 40 dB down. I think it's like about 5 dB from the center frequency
Yeah.
of that tuning band. So
That's really important. I mean, that I think that causes so many problems when people have IFB channels or camera hop channels that are right in the middle of their talent
right.
frequencies. Yeah, no, I
So
think that's huge.
that typically makes the tuning band usually very easy to use. But you might ask, well, how do I choose which tuning band I should use? Because you've
How
got
do
all
I
of these.
choose which tuning band
Yeah,
do I
so
choose?
maybe the best workflow, and like we've been looking at this real-time spectrum analyzer, which is, as I say, it's real-time data.
Mm-hmm.
What you see is what you're getting in real time. There's no latency there.
Yep.
But you can see here, there's a button called scan. So this actually puts it into more of a traditional scanner mode, but still with advantages. Now, when you go into scan mode, you do disable audio. So this is the sort of thing you do at the beginning of the day to determine what tuning band or tuning bands you want to use.
Got it.
So I'm going to stop my audio. I'm going to go in there. When I do that, What I'm now looking at is a much wider part of the spectrum, and you can see here it says 470 to 616. So that's giving me a good proportion of the UHF, usable UHF band in the US, right? And you can see that it is still updating in real time, right? It's doing essentially a sweep every half a second or so, approximately, right? So it's not like in our super slot system whereby you hit scan and it gives you one plot,
Right.
and then you want to do another one, so then you manually create another. This is still updating every half a second, so it's I'd call it quasi real time.
Mm-hmm.
And you can zoom in. We've got like this zoom in. Well, you can scroll you can scroll the cursor here, right around, and you can look. You can see from here that I can see the various clean areas of the spectrum, right? I can see that there's a TV channel just here, so I
Yeah.
don't want to be operating there. So I could place my cursor right next to it, for instance, or down here, I could select this tuning band. Okay, so once you see a clean bit, a clean part of the spectrum, you can place your cursor there, and like before, I can press my knob here, and it takes me directly into that band. So now I'm back into the tuning band and looking at the real-time spectrum analyzer. And at this point, I can then start allocating various frequencies just by tapping away.
And is that in 1 megahertz increments that I'm kind of shifting that window around?
um,
Or is it
so
is it
explain to me what you mean
like
there.
so
Oh, the tuning band.
yeah,
So
or are they
you're asking
predetermined?
they're predetermined. So let's
Got
take
it.
a look
Okay.
at the list, for
Mhm.
instance. So in the list of available tuning bands,
Got it.
it varies depending on country and what's available in a country legally and
Understood.
unrestricted. There are
Yep.
bands which we can unlock for you. For instance, in America, there's the AF-track
Mm-hmm.
part of the spectrum, which you have to jump through hoops to do, but it is available here. We can unlock that for you. But just to go through the list, you can see a rough idea of what you've got.
I
And
see.
as you can see,
Yeah.
as you see me scrolling through the list, can you see it updating the
Oh
RTSA
yeah.
in real time?
Instantly.
So
Yeah.
it's instant. So you can get a really good feel for what you're seeing there. Okay, so I've just gone. Let's go back to my original one, which is that one. And notice it still remembers the original frequency allocation of my transmitters. All right. So if I was to switch to another band, like this one here, notice that it's automatically reprogram those transmitters to the frequencies in that tuning band. And I didn't mention this before. This is a really neat feature. It's imagine a scenario where you're on set and you program all your transmitters to certain frequencies and they all look good, but you want to offer yourself a backup tuning band or redundancy because you're concerned that maybe there may be some unpredictable interference during the day. So what
Mm-hmm.
you can do is you can set up your transmitters in any particular tuning band and then select another tuning band. Let's do this actually. Let's maybe go to another clean one just here. Not that one. Let's go to this one. Okay. So I'm now going to move the transmitters that are already allocated to frequencies in the other tuning band, and I'm going to put them here. All right, so let's just select this tuning band. So now I'm going to press where that blue cursor is. I'm going to move that transmitter to that particular frequency in this new tuning band. Okay, so that channel 1 has now moved to this tuning band. I could take another channel here. So let's do that. And you can see now we've got those two, right? Now,
Ah.
okay, so maybe I could choose a whole set of frequencies here as a backup in a different tuning band so that if anything in the original tuning band, which if I go back to now, which was this one, if anything happens here, I can then very, very quickly in the space of seconds move to a new tuning band and the system will fully recall the frequencies and push those frequencies to the transmitters. So it's like a redundant tuning band.
Fascinating. There are some directly relevant questions that I want to get to.
Okay.
So the tuning band is limited at 24 megahertz, which is correct. So that means all 16 channels must be in those 24
Yeah.
megahertz.
And as I
But that's
said, that's
not a
fairly
problem.
easy to do because of
Yep.
our 400 kilohertz spacing, the SAW filtering. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And I I see all the questions coming in. I will get to them. One interesting question that might be getting ahead of ourselves, but can the Nexus control a Wizicom LFA antenna? You know, based and
Yes.
sort of talk to it about the
Yes.
band that it's in. So this is from Luis. Will
Yes.
it
Yes.
work with Wizicom? Yeah.
Yes, we support the LFA and the BFA, and that's fairly. I'll just quickly show you. If you go into the RF menu here, tap that, and then you can touch. You've got two settings gear menus for each antenna.
Mm,
We haven't spoken about antennas yet, but
yeah.
here, if a Wizicom LFA was attached and we enabled this setting here, smart antenna, then you'd be able to control all of these LFA parameters, absolutely. And obviously power them with the power bias control here.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Because, and again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. You can remote this and the antennas and have remote control of both, which is really
Yep,
amazing.
transmitters and antennas, yep. And the other nice thing is, we haven't even showed the web app yet. Everything I'm showing you essentially from the front panel of Nexus right now can all be controlled from a web app as well. The Nexus includes a web server. So what that means is on any browser, whether it's running on your phone or your tablet or your computer, you can remotely control this Nexus from anywhere on the network. And if you had a VPN connection, you could control it from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So, and that's not just controlling Nexus, but essentially the transmitters that are connected to Nexus as well.
Hey, while we're looking at the front and looking at screens, I wanted so we see the RF in on the front. I assume that's the RF in those BNCs at the
Yeah,
corner.
yeah.
And then this is related to a question coming from Martin Schulte, which is that headphone out. That's an 1/8 inch connector, yeah.
Yeah, just here, 3.5
And
mil.
and so you can solo the different
Yep.
received.
So yeah, anytime you go into a channel,
Mm-hmm.
it will automatically solo that channel.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you jump back out to the main menus here, the headphone preset is determined by setting in your audio out menu here, and then you get various options for your headphone output. Right. And
Perfect.
a number of options there that you can select from.
Amazing. Martin replied, "Love it and the best." By the way, Paul.
Oh, even better.
um, uh, this is a lot to take in. All right, I want to try and keep this to under an hour.
Yeah.
But that seems daunting to me right now. I kind of feel
Can
like we
we?
should. Yeah.
Can, do we want to go over the back panel? Because
I think. Yeah. No. I think that's
it will.
the next logical thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, so okay. So let's take a look here from. We've spoken about the BNC antenna inputs on the front panel, but we have two on the rear as well. And so user can choose whether they want to use the front or the rear antennas. When you select the front antennas, these two rear BNCs can be used as cascade outs. So if you want to hook up a second Nexus. And those feeds are pre-filtering, so it's full wideband, the full 470 to 1525.
So if somebody did have concerns over getting 16 in one band, they could get two Nexuses.
Absolutely.
Have you come up with the official plural pronunciation, by the way?
Nexi.
Nexi. That's too nerdy. And,
well, have you got any better suggestions?
No, I don't. And cascade out that way, or cascade to other wireless.
That's it. And like both the front and rear both support smart antennas and can power as well. So
amazing.
Okay, moving along. Let's talk about these antennas here, the two SMAs. That's for your NexLink.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're calling the backlink control from Nexus to the transmitters. And super long range, as we've already spoken about. And you've got two antennas there offering true diversity. So that even gives you, that robustness of that communication as well.
So
Right? And
I'm sorry, I'm just kind of wrapping my head around the idea that there's two transmit antennas. So really, I would want to space those out, as far as practical. But any transmitter has the opportunity to see the back channel from two different RF transmissions. Is that
yeah,
is that right?
yeah,
Thus increasing the robustness, as you said.
exactly.
Yeah.
All
Hey, what are
right.
those square-looking things down below the 2.4 gig?
I think you know what they are. So yeah, we have essentially 3 network ports, 2 here on our
Uh-huh.
J45s, and then in the corner there's an SFP slot. Um, so that's for taking like SFP modules, and the prime use case there is to run your network communication over fiber optical. So if you were really wanting to remote the Nexus over super long distances away, and I'm talking kilometers, you could run your Dante, because we didn't even mention this yet, but this does have 16 channels of Dante.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the
Let's go
network
Dante
capability.
before we go fiber. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, the main all these network ports support Dante over audio over IP, 16 channels in and 16 channels out. And so the 16 channels out are your 16 receiver signals. And so you can just feed that to any device on the Dante network, and you can set up all your routing using Dante controller there. In terms of audio out, well, no, we'll talk about that in a minute. And also we have control over IP. We spoke about the built-in web server before. So by just hooking this into a network, you can then log into the box via any browser and control pretty much any aspect of Nexus remotely. And then we also support power over Ethernet on this port here, Dante Control 1, PoE in. So those 3 things allow Nexus to really be placed much closer to the action, which makes total sense, because if you're reducing that transmitter to receiver distance, you're really reducing the chance of any possibility of dropouts at all.
So
And
let me
so,
just make sure I
yep,
have my head wrapped around this. A 300-foot cable, 100-meter cable, will carry the Dante audio,
mm-hmm,
will carry power for the
yep,
box,
mm-hmm,
and will also not just the Dante audio coming to me, my mixer, but also are those mic line outputs on those DB25s? Can I send audio to this box to like feed a Comtech or
yes,
something like that?
yes,
Uh-huh.
exactly. So you can, from your mixer, send Dante up to 16 channels of Dante to the Nexus, and then use the Nexus essentially as a Dante to AES out or analog bridge. So yeah, just quickly show you in the menu here. You've got these 2 menus, D sub output and top and bottom. So you can then select your Dante inputs as source here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then convert that to -10 or line or mic level on your D subs. So you can choose to send whatever you want from your mixer for comms and IFB feeds and what have
Right,
you.
or voice of God, or
Yeah, voice
anything.
of
Yeah,
God, exactly.
yeah.
If you believe in him, that is.
Well, all right, that's a different podcast. We'll do. And I can't quite. Well, I guess I have it here. I think we're on to the connectors on the right hand side. Yeah.
Yep. So we've spoken about all the audio connectivity, Dante AES out, analog out.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, these analog and AES outs can also be your receiver signals as well, simultaneously along with your Dante. So you could be sending Dante to your mixer. The analog and AES out are still live. And
Hilarious, because Sam Kashefi was literally asking that as you were answering it, which is,
there
can
you
you
go.
send Dante and AES out at the same time?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Dante AES and analog at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're moving further along here. We've got our this is our DC inputs. There's 2 ports here for redundancy. So that runs from like 10 to 18 volts. It says 6 there, but just ignore that for the minute on this. So this is 10 to 18 volts. If one cuts out, the other one will seamlessly cut in.
And so that's 3 total power inputs. One is PoE, and then these 2 DC-ins. Yeah.
Right. We should mention that when docked on an 8 series, the PoE and the Dante are disabled.
Which makes sense.
Okay.
What about the analog and AES outs? Are those disabled?
Those are disabled as well.
Okay. All right.
All right.
It makes me a little sad, just for people that want to do, redundant recordings. But I get it. There's a lot in here. Particularly.
You can still run them in a bag, obviously. You just wouldn't actually dock the unit. So you'd have it sitting on top of your 833, and it would. You could still then hook up to your 833 via AES or analog out. One thing that is still enabled is the Ethernet control capability. So you can still control it from a web browser.
Interesting.
And obviously your BNCs for your antennas and your NextLink, it's all still enabled.
There's so much going on here. I mean, even if we move one set of connectors over to the right, you have power out. I feel like we could turn this into like a Ginsu steak knives commercial. Like, wait a minute, one more thing. So not only can you feed audio to a Comtech, but you could theoretically power it as well.
Yeah. So you've got a total of 500 milliamps there, and that's at the voltage that's coming in via the DC inputs. So if you're running at say 12 volts, you'd have a total of 6 watts there, which is it's a good amount to cover a couple of IFB.
Yeah, that's great.
And then to the right hand side of those ports, we have a USB-A port, which has several purposes. The first is you saw that we unpacked a USB-A to USB-C cable in the box before. Well, that's where you'd plug this cable and connect the other end to your A20 Mini to pair your transmitter to the Nexus, because the Nexus has this thing which is called the TX list. I can show you briefly. TX list here, and this is really just an inventory of all of your transmitters that you use on productions. And just because you've got them, I think you're going to basically pair your transmitters once, and that's going to be it. You're never going to have to go through that process again. You're just pairing your transmitters so that they appear in the inventory. From here, you can then choose whether they are actually mapped to a channel or not. You can see that these particular transmitters are mapped, but I could set them to off so that they're not mapped to anything, and in which case they're not powered or the channels are not powered or what have you. So this is like that info, that inventory list. And the way you pair to this list is using that USB-A to USB-C cable. You simply just plug it in and it will automatically appear in this list. It's as simple as that.
Got it. Martin asks a question: is there a user setup file that we can load from an SD card?
So let's just carry on talking about that USB-A port, because that is on this subject. So the other thing that you can plug into this USB-A port is like a USB thumb drive, and that can be used for saving and loading setups per Martin's request there, as many as you like. And it's also nice, and there's a quick setup menu down here. You can actually choose which categories you want to load when you load a setup, so you don't have to do this globally. You could just bring in your network settings or the scan settings or audio settings, and so it's a bit more flexible. And the other thing about the USB drive is you can use it for firmware updates. You just dump your PRG file at the root of the USB drive, and then you can update that way. And you can also plug in a USB keyboard there if you want to as well, if you want to name transmitters and things like that. Although if it were me, I'd do it all from the web app.
And that does bring up a question that is coming up, which is there is no app per se. It's just a web page.
Yeah, but it's I would say
right. And when I say just a web page, right, it's quite a web page. We'll do it.
Do you want to have a look at it now?
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Don't know if
There you go.
Everyone's
Yeah, we
seeing
see it.
that.
Yeah.
You are seeing. Okay, so like this is the web page here, and I think it's pretty obvious what you're looking at. We've only got 3 transmitters here right now. So this is receiver channels 1 through 4, 5 through 8. If you're not using a group, then you can minimize them. If you had 16 channels here, you could obviously see all 16 channels on this page.
Can I ask a stupid question?
Go.
How did you know how did you browse to this?
Oh, do you really want to know those details?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming the answer is
Yeah.
it's on the display. You
Yeah.
just say what's the okay.
Well, let's go back to here. So I don't know if you can see the back.
Martin
the
says yes. We really do want to know this details.
Okay, so let's go to. Are you seeing the Nexus again?
We'll make it full screen.
Oh, there. Can you see that?
Stand by 1 second. I got this, Jared. Yes, there we
Yeah.
go.
So you can see here. There's in the main menu. There's a network menu. You tap that, and there's various settings relating to that, and you've got different settings for Dante, different settings for control. So your Dante network and control network can be independent if you prefer to keep them independent, or you can have them basically operating on the same, have Dante and control across all ports if you like. And you've got various ways to configure these ports. Dante and control on all ports, or do you just want Dante on ports 1 and 2 and control on the SFP? Blah 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 blah.
Right.
You've got various options there. I can give my Nexus a name, which is great because that will tell you which Nexus you're controlling on the web app, but it was also that will become your Dante device name as well. So,
oh, nice.
Right.
Right. So I'm going to bring up the web page again. There we go.
Okay. So let me just do that too. Okay. So yeah. So I can come in here. And like I said, I can collapse things down, but this is just a good overview page, right? And at the top, we've got our various menu tabs, you know, the name of the Nexus, power, blah, 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 blah. Each of these is just a quick overview. So I can see the frequency, I can see the name of the transmitter and the receiver channel. I can see the transmitter battery life here. I can see the strength of the NexLink signal. So that's telling me it's super healthy.
Because the transmitter is reporting the strength of the NexLink signal that it's getting back to the Nexus. Is that right?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And I can also see my RSSI meters on the AB antennas here, and also the Q meter. The Q meter is, in my opinion, a lot more useful because you can have low RSSI but still get good Q, or you can have great RSSI but low Q if there's like if something's sitting on top of the frequency you're using.
Yep.
And then this is an RF history. So I guess if I go into this channel and if I click on that channel, I can see a lot more detail now for that one channel.
And when you say history, is that big blotch of purple that we're seeing?
Yeah, so if I turn off, for instance, this transmitter, you'll now see the signal has disappeared, right? And so I'm getting no Q signal there.
So that's great for like a walk test as well. Like you can see exactly where the signal dropped out.
Right. And you can, from the RF settings tab up here, in this menu at the top, called RF settings, you can actually set the width of that RF history here up to, I think it's about 10 minutes. So if you're going for a long walk, then good. So that's, and this can also be, you can set this to be your Q values, or you can set it to be your RSSI signal.
Got it.
All right, so if I turn that back on, we should be seeing something. There's the signal, and there you can see the Q meter bouncing back up as it locks on. All right, and you can see the audio meter bouncing here. The nice thing from this screen is I can actually adjust the gain level of the receiver. Okay. Now,
and let's be clear, that's the receiver gain level.
Yeah, because what we haven't spoken about, obviously, today is gain forward. The A20 system does have this thing called gain forward, which is basically a technology which means you no longer need to control the gain of your transmitter. It's such wide dynamic range, like over 130 dBs of dynamic range, that we just transmit that whole thing. You just make all your trim gain settings directly from your mixer trim control or your recorder trim control, and there's no penalty for noise or clipping or anything like that. Okay, so yeah, we can control that directly from here. Okay, the other settings you can make a high pass filter on and off. You can set the RF power from here. So if you do find that the Q value is starting to drop to 4 or 3, and you're thinking maybe it's getting a bit on the hairy edge there, you can sort of up your power setting of the transmitter here.
I'm smiling because just the thought of a world where a 2 milliwatt transmitter provides full RF and full Q is just great. I really love it.
Yeah, and really that 2 milliwatt, sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
And this long range modulation scheme we have is phenomenal.
What does that mean? Long range modulation scheme.
It does what it says on the tin.
But what does it mean like why wouldn't I always have long range? Am I
really very little reason to not use it. I mean, we initially had what we call standard range. That was the first modulation scheme that we offered, and it was fine. But realizing that probably the biggest factor with wireless is the better the range, the better the system, and the more at ease the user feels, that we thought, no, let's see if we can really get let's try and get the best range out of any system on the market. So we spent a long time developing this modulation scheme, the long range scheme. There's no negative to it at all. The only minor negative, which really is not going to make a difference to production sound mixers, is that there's a slight added latency, an extra 1.9 milliseconds of latency. So standard is 2 milliseconds, long range is 3.9 milliseconds.
Okay, so yeah, not a big deal for film use, TV use.
Exactly.
Okay.
Let
me just I want to clear something up for Martin about using it on location and in a bag. I have to say, until you get your hands on one and can sort of see how useful the onboard touchscreen is, I think if I were in a bag, I don't know that I would be so concerned about always having use of the app. Or use of the web page. I think the touchscreen does a fine enough job to control everything I need to control. If I did, I've used little 5-inch tablets with an Ethernet dongle, and that's probably how I would do it if I really felt like I needed to use the app in a bag. But okay, and fair, when the bag is on a table, I think I would just do a hardwired tablet, like that.
Right. Just while we're quickly in the screen, this is where you can sort of set frequency for each transmitter. You can choose other transmitters from the list for this channel. But let's just quickly go over. You've got mute functionality, ID. You can ID transmitters so that if you've got a whole bunch of them, you know which one you're talking to. If you're in record mode, you've got record functionality. This is in the US, it's still either RF only or record only. Every other part of the world, you can do both simultaneously. Let's just look at some of these menus up here. This is just the power menu. It gives you a voltage readout of your Nexus voltage, supply voltage. You can turn on your DC out. So if you want to disable your IFB, you could very easily from here. If you didn't want to do it via the audio itself.
Interesting.
Yeah. Security. This is if you want to set a password for the web app. So if you don't want anyone to go in there and start messing around with your settings, you can do that from here. All right. You can also lock. One of the applications we haven't really spoken about is that really the Nexus has been designed for 3 applications, equally at home in all 3 applications, and that is in a bag, docked to an 8 series or mounted on any recorder for that matter. It's great on a cart, but also it can be run remotely by virtue of the fact that you can have Dante audio power over the Ethernet and control over several hundred meters, right? But when the Nexus is remoted mount. You don't want anyone fiddling around with it, so you can turn on this Nexus front panel lockout toggle here, so that they can't, so that one of the talent doesn't start fiddling around with the equipment or something. You know what I'm saying?
Got it. Yeah, absolutely.
Then you can set up your RS settings. You can select tuning bands from here if you want to. Various things which you can choose which antennas you want to use, front or rear. Let's stick with the rear. Power bias on your antennas. And then you've got your audio output configuration, which we've spoken about just before. And then this is one of my favorite things about the RTSA. I mean, you've got a great, on the Nexus front panel itself, you've got those 3 screens, which make it very, very usable and very visible. But if you really want a nice screen running on your either phone, tablet, or computer, this is the one to use. And it's, again, you can assign everything from here. You can move the cursor. You can assign the cursor to different receiver channels. All of that stuff here. I can quickly jump to channels directly from a peak. It's very easy to navigate. I can look at individual antenna signals here. I can decide whether I want to look at peak signal, normal, or the average. And you can even save the RTSA data as a CSV file, and a PNG file. So this is, if you're at a particular location, why not do an RTSA scan of the environment and save that data so that you know what you're looking at next time you revisit.
And of course, CSV is compatible with a whole bunch of other coordination tools. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. It's fully compatible. It's basically just frequency in megahertz and dBm values, correct?
I feel like this is a long video.
Let's stop.
No. I mean, I think, I'm looking at the number of viewers. It has not dropped. But I do want to make sure that we address one other surface. I'm just going to switch to the overhead here.
Right.
And there's a quarter 20. Is that a quarter 20 connector on the bottom?
That's right.
Yeah, which I think is goes to the level of detail of how you guys thought this would be used, so that it could be mounted on something securely, without having to resort to bungee cords or eye bolts and other weird stuff.
That's correct.
Which is very nice, I think.
There is another optional accessory which we have on offer called the A20 shelf, which is a 1U full rack shelf, and you can very easily mount your Nexus or 2 Nexuses in there, or maybe a Nexus and a power station 8M, to charge your transmitters, so that's available too.
I want to get to some of the questions because they've been building up also.
Okay. Do you want to bring me back into the shot? Oh, I do that.
I do. Yeah.
I'll do that
you.
bit. Hold on. Let's see. Dink, dink, dink. There you go.
There you are. All right. So here is a question from Blaine Bailey, and it also, I think, gets into Kyle. This gets into your question a little bit as well, although I'll make sure it does. So aside from sending audio cableless, is there any advantage to combining this with an 8 series recorder? Can a Nexus and recorder communicate?
Well, I think we mentioned earlier that you can dock a Nexus to a recorder. If it's an 8 series, you can dock it. In fact, this is an accessory, which is going to be an optional accessory, which is going to be available as well. It's called the A20 Quick Dock. And that's exactly what it is, and it's very easy to fit. You fit it to the bottom of Nexus, 4 screws essentially, and this is like a quick release mechanism here. And then you basically dock it onto the 8 series via the expansion port, and it's very, very quick to fit and remove. It's literally just squeeze together 2 levers, release a catch, and it pops off. It can be done in the space of seconds. And so yeah, it's that's the cableless solution, really, the ideal cableless solution.
But when it is docked, and here's Kyle's question about having an 888, the control of the wireless is done
Right. Okay.
from the Nexus or from the recorder at that point.
It's all done from the Nexus
Mm-hmm.
front panel. Ooh, it's so much easier when you have touch screens available to you. There's no control from the 8 series to the Nexus. The only thing that that expansion port does is obviously take the audio from the Nexus via the expansion port, all 16 channels into your 8 series. The 8 series provides the power.
Got it.
To Nexus as well. Yeah.
But it's still a very sexy combination.
Yeah.
I like this question. Luis, any plan on releasing a half version like a Nexus 4, for example?
No plans.
And I think that's it. Jared, if you don't mind scanning the questions also and just seeing if there's something I missed. But I think, most of these we got to in one way or another. I really like this. I really like the Nexus. I mean, I think it ticks a lot of boxes, yeah. I mean, it's hard to sort of say what the favorite feature is, but for me, the eye-opening moment in this stream, apart from the PoE and apart from sending audio down, and power down the cable, I love the idea that it can be smart enough to talk to the Wisicom antennas.
Okay.
That's I think there's so much forward thinking going on here.
They're great antennas. That system is a really nice system.
But it's so much more powerful when it's got a brain behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, for us,
right.
it's I mean, it's been a big labor. It's been a really exciting project to be involved with, and we really wanted to try and raise the bar.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to leave on this note: this whole Nexus, this whole A20 platform, which your users are starting to see new products coming out with the prefix A20, with the A20RX, the A20 Mini, now the A20 Nexus. Mm-hmm. We have a much nicer name for that as an ecosystem. It's called the Astral series. Astral, A for Astral. And we'll be seeing a lot more product in this platform.
All right. To the stars.
Yeah, and beyond.
And beyond.
To infinity and beyond.
Paul, thank you so much for taking the time. This is quite the unboxing video.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, everybody, for watching, and thanks for the great questions. We should say this is starting to ship now. We literally just got our first batch today, and it'll continue to ship over the next few weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, and people can go to our website. There's a whole lot of information. There's a full user guide where you can really dive into the details. There's some articles on how NextLink works, an article on the architecture. I mean, how is it possible to get 16 channels of true diversity in such a small space? There's architecture discussions there in the user guide. So yeah, take a look.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Paul.
Bye-bye.
Jared,
Bye.
take us away, please.